Yeah, nice to have you two here with us for this panel on HeForShe at home. How can we tackle the care gap and get men on board as well? Yeah, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Nora Teuma. I'm on the board of UN Women Germany, and I particularly work on the HeForShe campaign with a focus, of course, in Germany. But we are very happy to also have someone joining from the headquarters in New York today, as well as one of our ambassadors from our program in Germany. Let me give you a brief introduction why we're talking about care together with two men and why this is really important. So firstly, when we talk about care, we talk about a really, really complex topic, as I think. And I think the aim of today's talk will be to kind of break it down into really tangible steps we can take and thoughts we can distribute in our own networks, be it at home or at work or amongst our friends, how to really tackle this care gap that we see. What are we actually talking about when we talk about the care gap? It addresses this unjust or unequal distribution between all kinds of work that are done to care for people, be it paid or unpaid, to care for one's home, to care for one's friends. So it includes paid work, which is done in hospitals or other care facilities, but also to a large part at home. And there's really so many small bits, often invisible bits, and these the burden to really do this kind of work is often shouldered by women. 75% of all care work, unpaid care work at home, is done by women. In Germany, this gap stands at 44%. Those are the recent numbers that were actually published only yesterday. Maybe it doesn't sound so bad when we speak about 44%, but what does it actually entail? It entails that women, in general, have a lot less time to pursue their own goals, to find rest, find relaxation, to care for friendships and all these kinds of things, because they're busy taking care of children, taking care of the household. Then how do we address this gap? I think there's two main pathways which we will address today. On the one hand, we need to talk about norms. So why do people tend to behave like this? I mean, it's not a written law. It's rather how we are socialized, how to behave. And then the other part are institutions or laws or other programs that exist that incentivize this kind of unfair distribution. And I think this is where I have two specialists here who will elaborate on what these institutions really are. But maybe one important link I also want to make is the link between these two different dimensions, because we can have really great parental leave policies, for example, but if the norms in place don't really put the responsibility on men to take this kind of initiatives, to use these programs, then we can have the best programs in the world, but still no equal distribution of care. So I think, in the next 45 minutes, we want to really discuss this link and find measures how to really, utilize these tools that we have in the best ways possible. We already talked about this topic 2 years ago at our conference with UN Women Germany. We have this yearly conference where the goal is to assemble people interested in gender equality and bring them together to formulate some asks that we want to ask the German government implement nationally, but also in within multilateral spaces. And we had one workshop on HeForShe, and from there emerged a number of different asks, but I'm going to present 3 so you get some idea what we talked about. So one was, as I said, the implementation of laws that exist. So that they don't only exist in papers, but that they're actually implemented in, for example, workplaces to provide these parental leave policies. Then on the other hand, we need to work towards having family-friendly work cultures so that it's easier for men and women with the roles or expectations they face to really voice their needs and have the wider society cater to their needs. And then lastly, we also need to value care work differently, because right now, as I said in the beginning, it's all these little bits. It doesn't seem like a big chunk of work. It's nearly invisible, but really need to make it visible. And we also need to put some value onto it. So it's not just done magically, but really see the work that it involves. This entails this kind of valuation between people, but then also, for example, in the national accounting system, where we don't see all this work that is done mainly by women. So these, are some thoughts we had in organizing this event. And now I'd like to pass over to Francesco, who joins us from the New York or from the UN Women headquarters, where he works on HeForShe Alliance. And apart from introducing yourself a bit more in detail, I would also like to ask you what HeForShe as this global initiative does, how you address care work, this care gap, and what kind of insights you've gained, what you've been able to gain from your work.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you for that great introduction. It's great to be here with you and Vincent today for this very important conversation. Yes, so my name is Francesco Merola, and I've been working for UN Women for the past 3 years now. My background is in international development, humanitarian emergencies, gender equality, and also partnerships. And I'm currently a partnerships management consultant at UN Women, and more specifically, I have been working on male allyship and male engagement through the HeForShe initiative at the secretariat level, as you were saying. And my role at UN Women mainly consists in managing the partners of the HeForShe Alliance. So since its launch 10 years ago now, in 2014 by Emma Watson, HeForShe has been UN Women's flagship initiative to engage and mobilize men and boys as allies in dismantling discriminatory gender norms and promote positive masculinities for gender equality. At HeForShe, we stress the notion that gender equality is not just a woman's issue, but rather a human rights issue that affects everyone. And therefore, men and boys have a crucial role to play, and we encourage them to take concrete actions to promote gender equality. Central to HeForShe's impact has been its engagement of high-profile leaders as champions for change through the HeForShe Alliance. And the most ambitious heads of governments, CEOs, executives of nonprofit organizations, and deans of universities who are tackling gender inequality within their spheres of influence have joined the HeForShe Alliance. And these leaders have made bold commitments to advance gender equality within their organizations and communities. And as trailblazers in their fields, HeForShe champions are leading by example and inspiring others to join the movement and take actions for gender equality. So far, HeForShe has mobilized more than 2 million pledges by men and boys in support of gender equality, and generated more than 3 billion conversations on social media around the role of men in movement for gender equality. And among these conversations have also been those on equal care. As you were saying, equal care is extremely central to the topic of gender equality. And the most prominent and influential conversation on the topic of equal care that HeForShe has sponsored is definitely the HeForShe at Home campaign. And this campaign was born as a direct consequence of the global COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. And because of the restrictive lockdown measures adopted by most governments during, especially the beginning of the pandemic, gender inequalities, particularly of women in the home, became increasingly apparent when it came to housework, to cleaning and caring for children, caring for the sick or for the elderly. And UN Women has identified that women on average spend 4.1 hours per day on unpaid care and domestic work, compared with 1.7 hours per day for men. And the HeForShe campaign, therefore, aimed to highlight this unfair burden on women and encourage men to do their fair share. As part of the campaign, we basically asked men to share stories of how they're doing their share of the care work. So what steps and things are actually doing in this for equal caregiving. And we received a variety of videos, both directly to us, or also shared through all social media channels. And videos could range from men doing very what could seem very simple acts like hoovering or washing the dishes or helping those children with their homework, for example. And in sharing these stories of positive male role models from all over the world, the aim was essentially to inspire more men to do the same. The campaign, I'm glad to say, was extremely successful and it generated over 27 million impressions globally. And in India alone, the TikTok campaign generated over 1 billion views. And in total, we engaged more than 200 men and celebrities worldwide, which I think really demonstrates how this is a topic which is at heart of many people around the globe. Yeah, overall, I would just say that HeForShe's stance on equal care is grounded on the belief that gender equality benefits all, regardless of their gender, and especially that it cannot be achieved without men's active involvement in challenging and changing traditional gender roles and norms, which are also related to caregiving and domestic responsibilities.
Thank you for all these insights. And it's really great to see, if you say this campaign was successful, so that there's an emerging kind of acknowledgement of men's role in tackling these care inequalities. I'm very curious to hear a bit more about that later. But now I'd like to pass on the non-existent mic to Vincent. Also you please introduce yourself a bit and the work that you do specifically with the HeForShe program or initiative here in Germany. And then I would also be really interested to hear from you why, when we talk about male allyship, is care such an important topic, and what really tangible measures can people take? I mean, Francesco already mentioned some examples from the videos, but I imagine you have a million more ideas about really the tangible steps that men can take to tackle this care gap.
Yeah, thank you, Nora, for the introduction. It's really great to be here with you and Francesco. I've been a big HeForShe fan since 2014 when it was launched. This is amazing. So it's also cool, particularly in the HeForShe context, to talk about this. Yeah, my name is Vincent-Immanuel Herr. I'm a consultant, speaker, moderator, and author. I'm also very happy since 2018 to have been with HeForShe Germany as one of currently 5 catalysts or advocates. And as Francesco said, we see our job as engaging, motivating, mobilizing more men, particularly in Germany, to come on board the quest for gender equality, to become allies, to act as allies, to get into these topics. And I find HeForShe very helpful. And Francesco, you talked about this. I think role models play such an important role. And so it's really important to engage men in visible positions. And if these men say feminism is important, gender equality is important, it opens the doors to younger men, to more men. So I found HeForShe extremely effective in activating men. We have a long way to go. There's still a lot of men who are not engaged at all in this topic, or even hostile or skeptical. So I don't want to paint a rosy picture here, but I think HeForShe is going in the right direction. And that is really, really valuable in itself, of course. Sorry. For care work, or the care gap or equal care, this is a topic that I'm really, really passionate about, and partially for personal reasons. My daughter, my wife's and my first child, was born in January 2021. So she just turned 3 last month. And I've had the great opportunity, really, I have to say, and the structure, the environment in which I could take a good amount of parental leave. I took, I think, 10 months of official parental leave under the German policy. And then I worked another 1.5 years or so in a very small part-time component. So I really got to know and spend a lot of time with my daughter for almost 2.5 years. And I have to say, this was an amazing time. I mean, I'll get to the work part in just a second, but I really want to focus on the part that was just so beneficial for me, and being able to really spend this time with your own child, with my daughter, learning from her, exploring the world with her, getting to know her really, and also getting to know myself. So this is a big character development time with the new child, etc. So this is a time where now she's already in daycare, and so now I see her already much less, right? She's gone Monday through Friday for most of the day. So these first 2 years are particularly important, and that's why I was just so grateful that I got to spend this time. At the same time, I also learned, and I think this was something I had underestimated before becoming a father, just how much time, energy, and overall commitment goes into care work. And I think many men make this mistake that they assume care work is just kind of like a hobby on the side. It's just a little bit something, but that's really not the case. Spending time with family, particularly with kids, being very present in the household, doing a lot of household tasks is a big topic. It takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of time. It is often very valuable, but it's not just a hobby on the side. And so I think for me, becoming a father, taking this parental leave, taking this part-time work, spending a lot of time in that area really made me understand why care work is perhaps the most central area we need to address if we want to achieve gender equality at large. Because as long as we as a society, and particularly as men, think and assume that care work is primarily a women's job, these women will lack the time, Nora, as you said in your introduction, for political commitments, for work commitments, for careers, for earning money, for doing anything beyond the household. And so I think the cool thing here is we have an opportunity. I think if we were to be able to really equalize the amount of care work done by men and women and queer people as well, I think we could almost, not single-handedly, but we could make big contributions to solving a lot of other issue areas as well. So care work is kind of a universal facilitator, I guess, for gender equality at large. And as I said, I'm also a consultant, and in this capacity, particularly with one of the other HeForShe catalysts in Germany, Martin, we go into a lot of companies, we talk with men, and we do see, unfortunately, that a lot of men are still having big hesitancies when it comes to care work, that there's a lot of resistance to it, and there's a lot of cultural expectations. I think, Nora, you also mentioned this, which make it very hard for men, or at least they think it makes it hard for them to actually take care work. I want to stop here, but I'm very happy to talk a little bit more about, at some point, depending on what you think, Nora and Francesco, I can talk more about specifically what we've seen in companies, what the hesitancies are and how to overcome those, but I don't want to overstretch my time here at the beginning.
Yeah, thanks also to you. I think, you already said it, there's plenty to discuss. And I think especially this link between how do we utilize existing measures, policies that are in place is something I would really like to explore together with you. But before we turn to that, I would also like to address our audience. So once again, thank you for joining us. And we would really like to also have your thoughts, your opinions, your questions in the remaining time. So we did prepare a Mentimeter. Some of you might be familiar with it. The link will be posted in the chat now, and there you have the opportunity to, on the one hand, answer 3 kinds of questions for us. So on the one hand, we would like to hear from you. Where do you see the biggest obstacles for men to really engage in care work? Where do you see potentials for solutions? So also this is something we would like to hear your thoughts on. And then the last question is, where do you take initiative and what kind of positive experiences do you have to share about getting yourself engaged in closing this care gap? So as I said, you will find the link to answer these questions in the chat. And there we also welcome questions of any sort you have for our panelists here. So please feel free to write them there, and then I can pass them on to the 2 men that have joined us. So maybe I will start with the first questions, while hopefully the other questions are coming in. And I would really like to jump in on this topic of parental leave, because I think it's really crucial when we talk about care. On the one hand, because it's obviously time for caregiving, but also studies have shown that men who have done this initial phase of really being responsible to do all this care work also in the long run are more engaged. So you said you have your personal experience, but then also going to companies to talk about these things with other men. Like, where do you see the biggest challenges to really utilize the existing policies that are in place to take this care leave?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think parental leave is such a big indicator of also of company culture. Does the company create a culture or the organization in which men feel comfortable taking care leave? I think, or let me quickly go back. It's really interesting. Studies show that the majority of men would like to spend more time with their family and engage in care work, but also other studies show that they don't do it. So the question, and that's the question you asked, right, is why is that? Why is it that they want to, but they don't? So what is hindering them? And that is the fascinating question. It's not easy to answer. I think two big components are a fear of financial loss or career opportunity loss, that men are very concerned. And we see this, we have talked with hundreds of men, often in leadership positions. They're really afraid of particularly having a career end. So to not advance anymore, to not be promoted if they take parental leave. It is interesting to also look at whether that actually happens, and it often doesn't, quite the contrary. If men take parental leave, in most cases, they are extremely happy about it afterwards, and they come back. They usually do not experience any sort of backlash at their workplace. Quite the contrast actually to mothers. And I think this is important to mention, because if mothers who mostly take the parental leave, who are mostly gone sometimes for a year or two, even more, if they come back, often they do find their career being somewhat frozen and not advancing much anymore. So we see here the patriarchy at work again. Even men who take parental leave, they benefit more from it than women do, but still they're more afraid than women are. It's almost bizarre, right? They should be less afraid, but they're not. And the other thing we are seeing, what really is holding a lot of men back, is a picture, an image, a self-image of masculinity. There is this feeling, or this fear almost, of judgment by other men. So if I, as a man, say I want to take, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months parental leave, there's a big fear of what will my male boss say, who might be this alpha guy. So what will he think? But also, what will my male colleagues think? And there's this big fear that if I'm the guy who goes at home, changes diapers and unloads the dishwasher, suddenly I'm not seen as a real man anymore. And again, in most instances that we are aware of, that is not what men experience, but there are unfortunately anecdotes where that does happen, where men get backlash if they try to take a lot of parental leave, where they're almost insulted for it, or people insinuate, well, shouldn't your wife rather take care of that? These kind of things, it does happen. It doesn't happen all the time. But so we are really looking at norms and cultural tropes here, right? That so far say women are the standard caregivers and men are at best is supporting support for that for women, but it's not a man's job. And so what we really try to stress, and this goes back to HeForShe and role models, is the importance of men in leadership positions in companies to talk about this topic. Because if the male CEO or the male board members or the male group leader, if this guy says parental leave is great, and if you as a guy, as a young father, take parental leave, I will support you and I will make sure that when you come back to the workplace, you have we'll get you back on track. It kind of takes away a lot of those fears and concerns. So we really see the importance of male allyship, particularly at leadership positions, to open the space for more men, to encourage them to really, go where their heart leads them. And a lot of men want to spend more time with their families. So it's almost a tragedy for men as well. And this might be the last point I want to make right here. Taking over more care work is not just something we men should do as a favor to women. I think we need to understand it as a man's job, but also see that there's a lot of value in it. Spending time with your family is something you won't get back later on. So if you don't do it now, we actually see a lot of men in their 60s and 70s, they really regret not having done parental leave when they were young fathers. So you should almost do this as a matter of self-interest. I think this is important to recognize. It's not just black and white, win-lose. More care work for men is win-win, right? Women, if they only do 50% of care work, they can do careers, they can advance their hobbies, be politically active, and men get to spend more time with their kids. It's great for both sides.
Yeah, I think this might be a really good narrative to really shift how we think about it. Now we're really focused on this one program, which is parental leave. But Francesco, I would like to ask you, what other tools, what other levers, alliances do you see in really tackling this care gap, maybe beyond this initial period of taking care of a newborn child? You mentioned you had people from all over the world take part in HeForShe at home. Maybe you can also just tell us about some great ideas, some great strategies you saw there. But generally, I'm curious about the bigger picture, what other measures are out there.
Of course. I think, again, I completely agree with everything Vincent said on equal parental leave. There are many other policies that can be adopted both at a governmental level and also at a private sector or organizational level. What I think is in terms of at least addressing societal norms, which Vincent has just discussed now. I think what we've seen effective through HeForShe is that to effectively engage men in different contexts, because we also have to remember that maybe some policies about maybe parental leave or other about having care facilities in companies or policies also for support of caregivers of elderly people, etc. They can differ depending on a regional cultural context. So what we've seen with effect with in HeForShe is that we engage men in different contexts and encourage their involvement in discussions about equal care. And because what we try to do is that we try to create inclusive spaces where we can allow men and feminist allies to challenge traditional gender norms and stereotypes. And an example of what we have done personally through the HeForShe campaign is the through HeForShe, sorry, is the I Do campaign, which was launched at a global level, and where we invited men to make simple commitments to advocate for gender equality in their daily lives. And through this campaign, we were able to engage men by demonstrating that anyone can support the advancement of gender equality, even through, again, things that may come across as simple actions. And then what we usually do is that we tailor these campaigns with the support of country and regional offices of UN Women to adapt them to the regional and cultural contexts of the specific audiences. And one other campaign which I think was very successful was the Because I Am a Man campaign, which we launched, UN Women launched specifically in the Arab states region. And this specific campaign called on men to become more active caregivers, in caregiving and in childcare, but also in domestic work and in prevention of violence against women and girls. Because what has been demonstrated is that more active, the more men are active in care work and domestic work, there's also a positive correlation with men being less prone to perpetrate violence against women and girls. And the campaign had a focus on fatherhood as an entry point to engagement to end discrimination against women and girls. And this was extremely successful to engage men, at least in this region. But then we can see other important policies that have been adopted worldwide. For example, one which I think is very interesting is in Japan. Japan is the Japanese Prime Minister is a HeForShe governmental champion, and in Japan they provide support for elderly caregivers. And Japan provides support for caregivers of elderly family members through various initiatives, including access to home care services, access to respite care, and also financial assistance. And these programs essentially help support caregivers in their roles and recognize the importance of caregiving for also aging population, which I think is sometimes a topic which is neglected when we talk about caregiving. As you were saying, Nora, we often focus about early childhood and maybe forget about other aspects of caregiving. And I can also mention a few more, but I don't want to take too much time on if there's any more questions.
Yeah, maybe they emerge later. With a different question. But
Nora?
Thanks so much for the insight. Yeah, of course.
Just if that's okay, I just really want to underline one point Francesco made, I think more at the beginning of your answer, the importance of safe spaces amongst men to talk about these things. And that's what we have seen to be extremely effective, that men often lack an opportunity to constructively talk about gender equality measures, be it care work or really almost any aspect. And this is something that organizations can very specifically do. Create moderated, structured, safe spaces in which sometimes just men, sometimes mixed groups of all genders can talk in a safe, confidential way, ask questions, perhaps even, share concerns or fears, and really have them addressed. And we have seen that sometimes this is what we do in companies, and we've seen that to be extremely effective. It creates a lot of synergy. It often enables men and women and queer people to really bridge differences, perhaps of understanding and how they relate to these questions. But we just have way too few opportunities like that to really just openly, constructively talk about this. It kind of seems too simple to be true, but I think we could make big headways by really enabling or providing spaces in which to talk about this. A lot of this comes down to communication, and we see this on men's sides. They're just so afraid. A lot of the fears are unfounded, but we haven't found really ways to address that or to put that into perspective. So that is one specific thing that companies can do.
And if I can sorry, Nora, just to conclude that I completely agree. And I just think, just to mention that HeForShe, in general, the movement is exactly that. It's providing a platform for men to publicly declare their support for gender equality in general, or equal care more specifically. And through the work that we do with HeForShe, through our campaigns and the work with our partners, we try to foster a sense of community, which again then in turn encourages collective action.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you make, because I believe like the feminist movement in general and the different initiatives that arose from that really provide this platform for women, but for men, we don't really see this happening at the same large scale. Nonetheless, I have the question, like why, or what does it take to really reach all men? Because I see with HeForShe, there's more and more initiatives, and also in the public discourse, at least as I follow it in Germany, I see that the topic does come up more and more, but also it's in many cases led or initiated by women. So what does it take to really, so even prior to, having these spaces, what does it take to get men to join these spaces? I don't know who of you would like to answer this question. I would, just ask it to the two of you. I see Francesco, you've unmuted.
Yes, I can go very quickly, and then I see we're limited with time, and then hand it over to Vincent. I think when we just start at the beginning of how to engage men, what we've seen is that often the issue is that men and boys associate gender or gender equality with women's rights or just a women's issue. And so what we try to do at the really beginning of the feminist journey for men is to explain and showcase that gender equality is beneficial not only to women, but to all genders, to everyone in society. It's not just a women's issue, as I was saying in the beginning. And therefore, it is crucial to obviously demonstrate how the patriarchy and how the stereotypes in gender stereotypes and harmful gender stereotypes are harmful to women, but they're also harmful to men. Again, I don't want to repeat many of the things that Vincent said at the beginning, but showcasing how gender equality is also beneficial to men in terms of mental health, physical health, even economic benefits at the individual level, at the more global and macro level, can entice those men who I wouldn't say they weren't feminists at the beginning. They maybe were unaware of being feminists, and then they understand the importance of gender equality, both as a human rights issue, but also at a personal level. And from then work to engage them even more through the support of partners, advocates like Vincent, advocates in the private sector, in the government sector, in universities, etc., to engage men even more, to be part of the conversation, and to actually take concrete actions to promote gender equality.
And maybe to build on that, just last week I came across a study, I think actually it is from Italy, that showed that awareness of the problem and the ways in which women and girls and queer people are being discriminated, so once men build that awareness through different methods, they're more likely to become allies. So it's really interesting. So awareness really has to be the first step to some degree. Men have to understand, or at least try to understand, what sexism feels like for women or queer people. And this is not an easy task, because most men do not experience this on a regular basis, sometimes not at all. I can speak for myself. I don't know what that feels like at all. I've never been discriminated based on my sex. And so for somebody like me to understand what it means takes some effort. It takes some mental energy almost. And what we have seen in our work is that men are often hesitant to make that effort, to really have a change of perspective, to accept that there are things in life that they don't inherently understand, that they have to trust others on, telling them how it feels like. We call this establishing a personal connection to the problem. And I wish there was another way, but we haven't found a much better way. That we have seen that men, the highest chance of getting men engaged is once they understand that the problem of sexism affects women they care about. So this can be their wife, it can be their mother, it can be their sister. It often is a daughter. We often see this, right? That men who have daughters suddenly become very interested in feminism. I wish they would do this earlier, but we see this to effectively work. And so one of the advice we give men who want to learn more about this, or who might even still be a little skeptical, we tell them, hey, talk to a woman who is really close to you, who you trust, who trusts you. Ask her what sexism feels like and what you can do. We also tell them no woman owes them an answer if they don't want to share anything. That's absolutely accepted. That has to be absolutely accepted as well. And I wish it was different, but this tends to be very effective. And to be quite honest, this is how I got into this, right? This topic, I learned from my mom what it felt like for her as a university professor being discriminated. I learned from my wife, I learned from my sister. So for me, this is a personal topic. Now I have a daughter, so I wish it was easier for us men to understand it, but we have found the most effective lever is to show men how close this problem is. It's not far away. It's not in other countries. It's not in other companies. It is right where they are. And understanding that is so crucial for them to then have an intrinsic motivation to become allies, to act, to support women, to support queer people, to stand up for gender equality. We have just unfortunately have not found a good method that does not involve this personal connection. Maybe some other people have ideas, but that's at least my experience so far.
If I can just jump in, I completely agree that making a personal connection is crucial and has been very effective. I just would like to add one thing onto what Vincent just explained. I think that, yeah, it's important to take example and create awareness through women in your life. It's also very important just to remember, it's something we always care to mention at HeForShe, that it's not women's or girls' responsibilities to educate men and boys. Therefore, as Vincent was saying, don't expect that a woman or girl owes you any answer if they don't want to. There's also many ways in which I think you can educate yourselves. So there's many books out there, many articles on gender equality, on feminist issues, the intersectionality within gender inequalities. There's also, besides books and articles, there's free online classes, there's workshops you can attend. And there's also, I think, excellent podcasts out there that talk about gender equality and male allyship, which are a great way to educate yourself and to even make that connection by listening to other people talk about the topic and engaging, yes, men and boys in ways in which literally with a podcast you can just listen to it while you go about your daily life, while you're going to the gym, while you're going to work, etc. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
I actually totally love this. This is such an important point. Reminds me, yesterday we had with HeForShe Germany like a first roundtable with men who want to be want to make progress on this topic, want to act as allies. It was fascinating. It was just men from different parts of Germany who were just interested, and they shared a little bit how they got into this topic. And one of them, and this really goes to what you just said, Francesco, one of them really shared how he at some point, once he got a little interest into this topic, he started following women on social media, reading more books by women, and kind of just engaging the women's perspective on these things by just reading and following. And I think this apparently was very effective for him. And that I absolutely agree with you. Women don't owe you an answer. They're not supposed to educate you. So really the next step after this like initial listening has to be educate yourself. And a great way is, on social media, follow feminists, follow women experts, follow women's rights organizations such as You and Women, HeForShe, and so on and so forth. And you just learn a ton of stuff that way.
Yeah, I love this conversation you're having, because I think, it really also is a great example of how men can give each other, great examples on how to make this really part of their reality. And I mean, as we said in the beginning, care work, the same as, these tiny forms of discrimination that might happen to other people in everyday life, they seem invisible if you don't experience it by yourself. So really making the point to making it visible in your everyday life. I really like this as maybe a take home message to make an effort to see the things you don't necessarily see. Yeah, I'm looking at the time and we're already close to finishing. So I would ask you to be very brief in your answers to this question, but I would like to ask you one more question, also maybe to give people joining the event some idea of what can they do. So we already talked about following, reading, listening to women, talk about care work, talk about other forms of gender inequalities, but maybe coming back to our topic of care and the care gap, what measures are you taking, be it at home, be it in your friend group, at work, through your work, that you say this is something that really everybody can and should do?
I can jump in very quickly given the time, Nora. I think one thing is, which is very important, and I don't think it often gets the appropriate value from people, is to promote gender inclusive language in equal care and caregiving conversations. So it is very important to use gender inclusive language that recognizes and values the contributions of all caregivers regardless of their gender. And it's essential to avoid reinforcing stereotypes through language about caregiving roles and responsibilities, everything we've talked about, these being only pertinent to women and just men can support, etc. So to encourage others to do the same, and in this way we can actually start dismantling those stereotypes that we've been talking about in this session.
Yeah, so really about finding a language to address these invisible things. I like that thought. Now on to you, Vincent.
Yeah, language is so important, particularly for men, to just really engage with that and show that respect, show that awareness. It makes a huge difference. I mean, it depends on the language, right? In English, it's a little different than perhaps in German or Italian, where there's different genders for words. But we've seen a huge impact also for companies very positively. For example, if they have a call for applications, or they want to hire and they use generic feminine forms or something like that, suddenly the number of women applicants really goes through the roof. So language it's not just a nice thing to do, it can be a very economically smart thing to do. I think that's also kind of really cool to think about. I think on a personal level, when it comes to care in particular, I think we need open communication, because I think often there are assumptions, particularly with us men, even well-meaning men, that if it comes down to it, the woman is the main caregiver. And I think often couples don't talk about this perhaps enough. We also don't talk about this perhaps enough at the workplace, that you just assume it sorts itself out. But if you assume it sorts itself out, it usually means women do the care work. And so you have to talk about these things ahead of time. You have to make a plan, be it as a couple or be it at the workplace with your, if you're a father or an expecting father, you have to talk about these things, or an expecting mother. So it really comes back down to communication again. We have seen this in couples who actually do make a plan, who will talk about this before and who really say, okay, what do you want to do? What do I want to do? How can we bring this together? It really also fosters relationship satisfaction. And we see that if couples communicate openly and men do more care work, the rates of divorce go down dramatically, particularly in the first few years of a child's life. So I would say that is an extremely important point that is often underestimated. It seems too simple to be true, but communicating early and effectively can save you a lot of trouble down the road.
Yeah, so really having these difficult conversations and embracing that. I also really liked how you kind of mentioned the shift from taking up care work to mental load. We haven't really discussed it in depth, but I think that was due to time, to really proactively think about what kinds of care need to be done, be it at the house for children, for parents, for other family members. But yeah, I need to cut our conversation short here. I think we could go on for another 45 minutes with ease. But I really thank you for your contributions. I think there was a lot to take home, a lot to implement in everyone's everyday life. Maybe to add on to that list, for all the people who joined us today, I would like to point out that we from HeForShe Germany, we have an Instagram account where we provide this kind of information. We, in the last days talked specifically about care because of this upcoming Equal Care Day, but generally if you are interested in getting men engaged, I think this is a great place to start. Also, a website, there's a ton of resources that we gathered over the years, ranging from, as we mentioned, books, podcasts, articles. We also developed a HeForShe journal where you can ask yourself maybe some easy but also some uncomfortable questions to really see where you're at. All of this can be found at heforshe.de. Exactly that. And then lastly, we have a HeForShe newsletter in Germany that launched recently. So if you're interested in staying on top of everything that happens with the HeForShe campaign in Germany, I warmly invite you to register for this newsletter, and you'll be kept up to date with what's happening, what Victor and his colleagues are doing, Vincent and his colleagues are doing, but also generally around the topics surrounding male allyship and feminism. I think that wraps up our conversation for today. Once again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. And I wish you a very interesting rest of this day, many interesting discussions, events, and would like to say goodbye.